society has become so accustomed to black physical death and social death that we discuss the loss of life like it's sport.
They catch a cat, they hang the cat, they lynch the cat, right? Hang the cat, tie the cat to a tree, and everybody is hitting the cat like it's a piñata. Apparently, while we were in the Bahamas, my daughter was in the pool. When she comes out, like she was underwater, when she comes out from under the water, a white woman sitting there made monkey noises. My daughter never told me.
Because she didn't want you.
Because she didn't want me to wild out. So I talked to my daughter. I'm like, baby, did that happen? She says, yeah, daddy, it happened. Well, why you ain't tell me? Because I was afraid what you might do. So when you talk about our black children not being given childhood, I lived that. My daughter's 10 years old, and she had to recompense in her mind, yo, this chick just violated me. I don't want to tell my father because he gonna tear this whole shit up.
What's clear to me is that black pain is commodified. And now you have to, like, where's the conversations about, yo, that's not happening anymore?
Welcome to What Just Happened. We are back. This is episode 17. I'm sitting across from my illustrious panel today. We have some new faces in the building. It's some old faces, you know, but for folks that don't know you guys, I want everyone to intro themselves and we can go around like this. Obviously, I'm Alexa. I'm the host, the moderator of the show today.
Your boy Zohran Johnson, comedian, actor, writer, out of Brooklyn, New York, of course.
Kenneth Montgomery, attorney, federal capital attorney, which for those who don't know is death penalty, federal state criminal defense. Was a prosecutor a long time ago. Taught law school for some years, 20-something years, and I'm a member also of the Brooklyn Combine, where I write, we publish a community newspaper, as well as do a lot of community programming. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
No problem.
You know me, I'm Marlon Rice. I'm a culture curator, Block Party King, founder of Good People NYC. And I just came off of Martha's Vineyard. I want to show some love to C'est La Vie, which is a black-owned wardrobe store on the Vineyard. So a lot of people go to Vineyard and they immediately want to go to Black Dog. Black Dog is not a black-owned organization. So on the Vineyard, there's a French black couple that own a store called C'est La Vie, and this is one of their custom pieces. So nice. I wanted to show some love to them and let people know if you hit the island, hit C'est La Vie.
Okay, yeah, shameless plug. We love
that's
that.
the sponsor. We was talking about sponsors. That's the sponsor for today's episode.
I'm not introducing myself first no more, man. Everybody else's introduction always sound fire. I'm like, damn, I should have said, you know, man.
And they added on to theirs. All right, so we'll put you last next time so you can add some onto your intro. Yes. Also, if he punches you, he's going to put your eye out with that ring. So you're not going to survive.
I don't have any problems with TSA or anything.
Okay, well, let's jump right in today's topic, starting off with the main thing. I know we've all been following the Nolan Wells case pretty closely to the point that even Nancy Grace has come out of retirement to cover the case, which honestly I love.
I got a funny Nancy Grace story today.
You do? Okay, you have to tell us that Nancy Grace story.
I used to be on Court TV with her.
Nice.
Oh, okay. All right, no, you have to tell us your Nancy Grace story. But the new audio has resurfaced of the Seaboat call that an outside source had to clean up. The case, again, has brought Nancy Grace out of retirement. And we know Kaepernick is paying for the autopsy as well as Ben Crump. Do you think there could be civil charges versus individuals and Mississippi for the handling of this case? What are you guys' opinions?
I'm gonna let the attorney. Set it off. I see. Right.
I think I have a different opinion about it for several reasons. As a black person, I think it's very odd. It's almost like we live in a Black Mirror episode, in that society has become so accustomed to black physical death and social death that we discuss the loss of life like it's sport. And you see. And this is not to disparage anyone, but the usual cast of characters come out when something like this happens. You have the internet sleuths who's solving it from their IG page, and are investigators and lawyers and advocates. You have the full-on, this is what we live in, the golden age, what I call white hegemony. So you have the racists who are attacking the mother for whatever reason.
Crazy.
And then you have the people who on their face seem to be advocating for black liberation, but it's really just kind of a money grab in some regards. And what's lost in that is like, damn, this kid lost his life. And what happened? He was a human being. He was a complex human being. What happened? And that part I don't like. I think when you start talking about assigning accountability, I think you have to figure out what happened. And so think about it. In this day and age where there's cameras and everybody's on the grid, right? The investigation has all the things that you need. So if you're an investigator, you have the things that are in line with science, GPS, cell phones, satellites. Then you have witnesses and what they say. But then you have the science, the autopsy report, the medical examiner's report, what happened. And I think it all gets lost in the distractions and the spectacle of Black death and social media. And so we will never know, honestly, right now, because whether it was an accident, whether it was something, a crime that was involved, because it's a distinction of, people can be civilly responsible and not criminally liable. But we don't know enough yet because this case is being played out, unfortunately, in the media. And we can't forget the history of Mississippi. A lot of people don't realize, as far as number, we're always talking about voting and voting blocks and numbers. I would imagine Mississippi probably has one of the largest percentage of Black people with the least representation. And there's a history of marginalization of Black life there. So, hopefully there'll be some transparency. Hopefully there'll be people on all sides to I try to stay away from it, to be honest with you, because I'm insulted when I watch people who clearly have a motive. I think there was a Black guy who was a former cop who interviewed one of the kids. I can't remember his name. He's a devout. He was
Tatum. Was it
yes,
Tatum?
Tatum. Yes,
Right.
he was with Candace Owens and doing some stuff with Brad. Like he clearly has a motive, but it's being pitched as if he's being this neutral guy. So I think we got to wait till the smoke is clear, unfortunately.
I agree with you about the spectacle. And I'll be honest, I didn't know much about the case because I try to keep my mind and spirit away from that design, which is, we've seen this numerous times over the last 2 years. The sister that got found in the meat freezer, right? I can't think of her name. Then the sister that went away with her friends and something happened and she wound up dead, right? But over and over again, understanding how social media commercializes so much, Black death has become like a trending topic for people to discuss, right? Well, who did it? How did it happen, right? Like the kid that got stuffed in the carpet. In the carpet, right? And at the end of the day, we get no recompense for any of it, right? And so, like, I'm saying all this to say, I really wasn't on the case until I got the notes for today's podcast and looked, and I started to see kind of what was going on. But I will tell you this. I got a story. When I was 12 years old, I got an aunt that lives in Syracuse. She's a judge now, but at the time, she was a young lawyer up in Onondaga County in Syracuse. She used to live in Liverpool, which is on the outskirts of Syracuse. So I used to go up there. Summertime, I spent a week or two up there. She used to live in a townhouse called Tudor Townhouses, and it was an all-white development. My aunt and, her family was the only ones up there that weren't, right? So I spent a lot of time at 12 and 13 years old hanging out with white kids. And, like, that is dangerous. Like, white kids don't do what Black kids do. Like, I was thinking about it today when I knew I was coming here. There was a time, so Tudor Townhouses the back of the townhouses faced a forest. And so the kids in the complex would go into the forest and like smoke cigarettes and like chill and do what kids do. Now, I'm telling you, I'm 12 years old. It's 1987. I go in the forest. I had these two white friends. They were brothers, Tommy and Justin. So I go in the forest with them. They smoking cigarettes or whatever. They catch a cat, they hang the cat, they lynch the cat, right? Hang the cat, tie the cat to a tree, and everybody is hitting the cat like it's a piñata.
Lucky they found that cat.
Right. Right. I'd have been the cat.
Right.
But I'm saying all this to say, like, as a black father, my concern is always where my black children are going to be and if they're going to be safe.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, the situation based on what I've read or my limited scope, because again, I'm not ingesting black kill trauma, right?
Yeah.
But based on the limited scope, as a parent, I'm very concerned if my black child is the only black child in a group.
Yeah.
I'm very concerned if my black child is the only black child in a group of whites that are like taking a boat somewhere or going somewhere. And I believe based on history that my distrust is validated. Now, it could sound racially insensitive, but I'm telling you, at 12 years old, and Tommy and Justin are probably like in politics now or whatever like that. They were around my age. But at 12 years old, they were hanging cats and hitting them with like a piñata. Yeah. And I never, I didn't come home and say, well, look, this would happen because I'm from Brooklyn first and foremost. But that is to say that as a black father, my concern is where my black children are, especially in a place that's not of blackness. I grew up, people used to ask the question, when did you have your first black teacher? That was big on Facebook before. So I went to a black parochial elementary school and I went to a gifted and talented black junior high school. I didn't have my first white teacher until 8th grade, Mr. Modlin, my science teacher. That was the first white teacher I had. So for me, I look to be cloaked and wrapped in blackness as much as possible. And I'm not about this idea of just letting my black children into the world without them understanding that the world is not befitting them the way that it is.
You hit on this point I just want to follow up on. So, when you study American history, I just wrote a article about American history. It's not terribly long to investigate. It's only 250 years. You can take it 50 years at a time. Black children have traditionally been denied their humanity. And in that, they don't have a childhood. They lose their innocence really early.
We spoke give you an about example. That the last time I was on a pod. So we spoke about that.
Brown v. Board of Education. There's always this famous photograph of the young girl in Arkansas, right? Going to class, Ruby, baby, and the adults are yelling at her, spitting at her. She's sitting in the classroom, and we look at putting our kids in those traumatic situations as progress. And that's very dangerous when you think about that. So think about, that I can imagine there was a circumstance where that kid thought he was safe. What is he, an athlete?
Right.
Athlete, player, good-looking kid, football player. But, we have a history of our kids not being safe.
Right.
And I think it's terrible what's happened. And I think Marlon is right. As a parent, you want to, the sad reality of a parent is that you can't live for your children. Like they're in a world that's anti-black. Like we live in an anti-black world where the bodies are piling up. It's parasitic. And we get shocked. And I'm with you. I wasn't paying attention to it. One, I'm in court dealing with some other that I have to deal with. So I wasn't paying attention to it. But what's clear to me is that black pain is commodified. And now you have to, where's the conversations about, that's not happening anymore? We're not going to allow that to happen anymore. I don't see that. Those aren't the conversations.
And that's a big problem. And, the story hits me from kind of a personal place. Not, of course, I don't know the family and it's so sad. Another young black child, going and there's no sense of urgency about figuring it out. If Nolan Wells was an 18-year-old white kid, we would already know everything that transpired.
If he was white, the entire football team, everybody else on that boat would have been arrested and interrogated.
This would be wrapped up. This would be wrapped up.
This would be different.
But also, it hits home for me because I have a 16-year-old son who goes to a predominantly white, high school in New York City, you know, in the 90s somewhere. And selecting that school was hard for me because, you know, to your point about, you know, going to all black schools my entire life, I didn't have my first black teacher until high school, right? I didn't go to school with white kids ever, you know, so now having my son in a space where a lot of times he's the only black kid there. And then my son is a very, you know, a popular kid, you know, plays sports, charming, funny. People like to be around him. So, of course, now he has friends that take him to Knicks games, you know, give him all these dope experiences. But then some of them ask, hey, ask your parents if for spring break you could come with us to France.
Right.
Nah, I'm sorry.
That's where you draw the line.
Yeah, and that's where I draw the line. And you know, it's crazy, you know, that we have to feel that way, but we have to feel that way because look at this, the Nolan Wells situation, you know, and I'm sure his parents are beating themselves up behind the scenes saying maybe we shouldn't have let him go.
Right.
But that strikes me as that kid probably has been comfortable. It looked like he has friends from many different places.
He's a football star.
Yeah.
His parents are well-to-do. They live in a well-to-do community. Again, this concept of what does black become in America?
There you go.
Right?
What's
What does progress? This is what progress looks like, right? Like his parents may have came from meager means. Now they able to live in this community.
Right.
Their kids could go to this school. This feels like ascension. It feels like success.
That's what success looks like.
But I'm gonna tell you something that happened, and we was talking about the kids and the trips. I'm gonna tell you this happened. This happened this summer. So I took my kids to the Bahamas. So we on this big resort. I'm not gonna name the resort, but we on the resort, and the kids are doing their thing. We come home. I take my kids back to my ex-wife. My ex-wife texts me like a day later, flipping. Yo, how could you let that happen? I'm like, what are you talking about? Apparently, while we were in the Bahamas, my daughter was in the pool. When she comes out, like she was underwater, when she comes out from under the water, a white woman sitting there made monkey noises. My daughter never told me.
Because she didn't want you.
Because she didn't want me to wild
I know
out.
what you was going to do.
Right? She never told me. She goes home. I take her home to my ex-wife. She tells my ex-wife's like, what the is wrong with you? I'm like, yo, I didn't know that it happened. Had I known it would happen, I would have dealt with it. So I talked to my daughter. I'm like, baby, did that happen? She says, yeah, daddy, it happened. Well, why you ain't tell me? Because I was afraid what you might do. So when you talk about our black children not being given childhood, I lived that. My daughter's 10 years old, and she had to recompense in her mind, yo, this chick just violated me. I don't want to tell my father because he gonna tear this whole shit up.
And what could happen to my father
and what
once
could
he
happen
does that?
to my
She got to
father?
think on a level.
So she got to think like an adult.
Like to what you so my oldest son went to Trinity.
That's
it's
one of the schools that my son was going to go to.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So from a young age. So one day he was wilding out in that school. Like I would get called every day to go pick him up because he would like pull the cot out. I'm not ready to go to sleep. Like he was. They didn't even know he can talk for like 9 months. Like he just
kept it.
I come to pick him up. They're like, yo, he can talk. I was like, yeah, I brought him here. He was talking. What are you talking about? But one day I went to pick him up and he was standing in a circle. All the white kids were surrounding him and they were playing in his hair. And he catches me with eye contact and he starts duffing everybody out. Because I think subconsciously he knew that, yo, wait a minute. And after that, I was like, yo, I'm taking him out of here.
Yeah.
So that same kid goes to a charter school very close by here, very popular charter school that started out with black kids because, you know, they get the black kids from the hood to get the charter, and then the gentrified parents come, and then it changes the dynamics of the school.
Right.
He was in the school, and in 4th grade, they had an exercise on slavery. And then the exercise was you had pro-slavery kids and anti-slavery kids. He was like, yo, I'm not doing that. And he's like, no, but you can be the anti-slavery. He's like, I know what I can be.
Why do we?
Because why? He's like, yo, why do we have to debate something that we know shouldn't have happened?
Everyone knows it's wrong.
Yes.
Wrong.
Why would you have a pro-slavery side?
Yo.
Wow.
And so he was livid about it. We were talking about it in the car. I went in the pharmacy right on Myrtle. I come back and he had took my cell phone and wrote why he thought that was wrong. And it really started, you know, as a parent, like, yo, parent is a beautiful thing, but it's also a scary thing to be a parent.
Scary.
It is.
You
So
realize,
scary. It is.
yo, you put your kids, you got to be mindful of where you put your kids and what you cultivate them to respond
And
to.
so I say all the time, I lived a very sheltered childhood. But the reason why it was sheltered is because I was cloaked in blackness for as humanly long as humanly possible before my parents had to let me out into the world. And then my first stop was Morgan State University.
No, so you-
Like, I had mamas and babas that took care of me, right? Multiple mothers, multiple fathers, right? Like, I could be anywhere and see any of my parents' friends, and they would either protect me or scold me, depending on what I was doing. Trips were never without crew, your
Right.
cousins, your family friends, right? And so I lived a life that I want for my kids because I was protected in a way that I didn't realize I was being protected, but I was absolutely protected and shielded from the anti-black sentiment of the world. Like, I wasn't called. I lived in Maryland, right? When I had got married, I moved to Maryland, and I was running on a highway in Montgomery County, Maryland, and a guy drove past me and was like, and at the time I'm like 37, 38. He drove past me and said, "Get out the road," and kept.
That was the first time?
That was the first time, bro, that I had ever
See,
got
I got
called. I was
early.
already
Early,
37
me
years
too.
old.
I got early.
I never. I mean, I got called from my. Like,
Right.
yo,
Nah,
nigga,
nah.
right? But not.
Hard
I
ER
never.
Me too.
Listen, I never experienced
Wow.
that until I was almost 40 years old.
Wow.
And
Wow.
my first instinct was to laugh because I was like, "Oh, that's funny."
Right.
My second instinct was to throw a brick at his car.
He's mad
but
as
then I was
hell.
like,
Yeah.
"Damn, right." Like, but I had never experienced. It was like comical to me. Like,
Yeah.
oh shit, that's what happens.
Some shit that only happened on TV or
it's
something
comical
like that.
it's comical to me now because anyone with a certain level of intelligence knows that, okay, you're using a hard ER at me to get under my skin. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm
about
not.
to
I'm not a
ruin
nigga,
my
so
life.
it's not.
Yeah,
Yeah, like,
because you want to use a word
Right.
with a hard ER at the end. But it's, as a person who grew up in predominantly white spaces, like, I'm the only black girl
Yeah.
in
Where was
most
that?
of the places
New York?
I'm in Florida.
Florida. Oh.
Yeah. So I grew up in Melbourne, Florida, and I went to all white schools. I was always the only black girl until I went to middle school, and my middle school was predominantly black, but I was still the only black girls in all my classes because
'Cause
I
it's-
was in a program in that middle school. It was a science program that middle school had that most of the students at the school did not have access to because they didn't meet certain requirements, right? So I'm in a predominantly black school, but all my classes have only white kids. I'm still the only black girl. So, but I didn't have my first black teacher was kindergarten. After that, I never had a black teacher again.
That's crazy.
Because I went to kindergarten in New York because I was born here. Never had a black teacher
that's
again. Like, not even in university.
Yo, ain't nothing like having
So-
a black woman teacher.
Ain't
Oh,
nothing
nah,
like
it
it.
gets you
And that-
straight.
and the
Nothing like
only
having
time
a
I
black
had
woman
that was
teacher,
in
yo.
kindergarten.
Right.
Yes.
Literally.
Right.
kindergarten.
Ain't nothing like it.
And to their point, I literally spent the night at her house. Her and my mom became close friends, and my mom allowed me to spend the night at her house. She had no kids. She just took a liking to me, and that was the last time I had a black teacher. But it's so crazy because when you talk about black children not being able to be children, I'll never forget this. I was in 5th grade at my predominantly white school, and we had a little mini school dance. We were in the cafeteria and we dressed up as like movie characters or whatever. And the only other black boy in the 5th grade, because it was a fairly small school, only other black boy in 5th grade started dating this white girl. And it was a thing because he's the only black boy, right? And we're in 5th grade. And so we're at this dance, and, you know, everyone's pretty much looking at this black boy and this white girl kind of like hugged up at the dance, you know, being in their relationship in 5th grade. And I'm sitting down, and there's these 2 white women. I'll never forget this. They're teachers. They are my teachers. And they're standing up next to me, not paying attention to me at all. And they're talking about the black boy and the white girl couple. And they're like,
Kids.
children.
Right.
And they're looking, and one of them was like, you know, I just don't understand it. Like, I don't get it. And the other teacher, white woman, says, I guess good girls just like bad boys.
Holy shit.
This black boy was never in the principal's office, never been suspended, did well in his academics,
Right.
was popular, fun, funny, good at sports. Nothing about him was bad
That's
except
telling.
for his skin.
That complexion, man.
Except for his skin. And I'll never forget sitting there as a fifth grader I still think about it to this day. I'm like, he's bad all of a sudden. The only thing bad about him was his skin.
Right.
So it's the adults perpetuate it. They
Yeah.
they teach that mentality to their white
Well,
children.
yeah.
And I never once felt comfortable when I was surrounded by white people. It was to the point that when I left my black middle school and had to go to high school, my mom wanted to send me to a high school that was predominantly white. I fought tooth and nail. And I didn't even realize why. I couldn't contextualize my strong motivation for not wanting to go to that school until I became an adult and really thought about it. But I sent them a fax, and this is dating me.
You said that. We had this conversation before, right?
I sent them a fax to rescind my application.
Yeah,
I got
you
my
said that
ass
before.
whooped for that. My mom beat my ass for that because obviously they were like, "What the f- is this?" And they contacted my mom.
Right.
But I, within the depths of my soul, did not want to go back to being surrounded by white people because I never felt comfortable around white people. They never made me feel like I belonged. They always made me feel like an outcast. And so this is just like, and there are some black people, black children that feel comfortable around their white counterparts because they don't have a reason, they haven't experienced anything overt.
Right.
But, this is a case of why black children should never be surrounded. Black people should never be surrounded by white people in general. I don't think that, obviously we can't control that, but you're never safe surrounded by
So
white
look,
people.
I'm sorry, Ken. So to me, listening to the conversation, right, and we know this is just common knowledge, sadly, this ideology of black success means that you are now around white people in white spaces. So how do we stop that way of thinking or that way of living? Because, Marlon, you made a great point of the way you grew up, right? Sadly, all of us don't have that experience, right? Now, most black people, you grow up in a neighborhood, there's a sense of community, your mother may work and you doing something and somebody see you and they say something to you back in the days. But just growing up in that pride as to where you're constantly around your own people, and no matter what kind of setting it is, work, school, community, and it feels good, right? That's amazing, but that's not everyone's experience. How do we remedy that and say, listen, there can be success for black people, and it does not have to mean moving to a white neighborhood, sending your kids to white schools, working for a white organization. How do we change that?
You have to be for that to happen. First of all, I think that was happening, right? That's happening even now in small spaces. The problem is that I think black people have become too American and not black first.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is that, there's a history of America and white hegemony and white rage. And what I mean by that is America is committed to advancing on two principles: capitalism and white hegemony. And white hegemony meaning at the exclusion and alienation of anyone who is non-white, and particularly anyone who is thinking their own ideology. So it starts, to me personally, with intentionality and education, where we have to create our own ideology from young.
Yep.
With teaching our kids, having safe spaces for our children, willing to have enough courage to say, look, if you come over here bothering these little children, you're going to pay.
Right.
When we study the history, there were people who were about that, and some of them lost their lives.
Yeah,
some of
look
them
at the Black Panthers.
Some of them lost their freedom.
Yeah.
A lot of things have happened, but we have to commit to that. For the last century, everything has been about us trying to integrate into something that does not want us.
Right.
Other than to entertain or commodify. And I think we have to address that. And we haven't addressed that because we too busy.
Yep.
We too busy applauding people for their black excellence. And the only reason we giving them black excellence is because they got a seat next to white people.
Yep, and that's
So
it.
real quick, just 3 points. First is, it is happening. So when we were off camera, and I was telling Dogs about how his experience with his tribe and how they do has affected how I do with my children. So the Combine and those brothers at the Combine have a village where those children feel insulated and secure in the village. So it is happening, right? The second thing I wanted to say is that there was a study talking about white hegemony. There was a study done, and this was the study. They brought whites into a room and they put on the screen a conference room with 20 random people sitting in a conference table, and they're having a conversation with the subject about diversity. What they found was the whites that they studied all were in favor of diversity, the diversity that they saw on the screen. So figure the 20 random people, they would start with like 3 blacks and 17 whites, and they would talk about diversity. Oh, I'm for diversity. What they found was at the point when the screen showed 40% or more of minorities, the white subject said, I'm not with diversity.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you? What it tells you is that whites, and I don't want to generalize it, but I'll generalize it. Whites, even whites that think in a liberal mindset, still abide by the hegemony.
Yeah.
Because what they're saying is we with diversity as long as it doesn't change the tone of our ability to drive.
Not too much.
Right.
Yeah.
Because once you get past 40%, it's too many on that screen.
Yeah.
Right? And now it makes their ability to have authority and dominion feel funny. And in every case, when they got to 40%, the subject was like, nah. The third thing was, I don't know if y'all peeped it, but when she was talking about writing that fact, she cracked her knuckles.
Yeah,
she was you heard that
for
shit.
sure.
She was like, nah. Crack.
She
said,
cracked that shit.
It's about to go up in here.
I didn't even realize that I did that.
No,
but that
too. Like,
I heard it. I heard it. I was like, oh.
I said somebody's shooting in here.
It still gives me a very visceral reaction. Yes. But we have to move on.
Yes.
I really appreciate all of you's point of view on that topic, though, just to say that. But 6 years later, we finally have the Fauci hearing. And although he's received a pardon from President Biden years ago, we want to really talk about what can really happen to him now. So
I think Fauci, first of all, you know, I know people, unfortunately, poor Black people, many have unnecessarily died because of the way the Trump administration handled a historic pandemic.
Yeah.
And it was a perfect storm in the sense that the Joe Rogans of the world became the basis of study instead of science. And you can debate a lot, right?
yeah.
Science, though, you should debate science, but you should also, science is not this thing that, you know, it has as an important basis in our society. And you had a president who was saying, yeah, take bleach, or, can we do,
Dumb
just total dumb right? And the society fell for it because we live in we live in a society that hates information, valuable information, anti-intellectual to the core. So I think the Biden administration knew this was coming. Look, Fauci is not just some American known guy. He's an internationally known person.
For half a century.
For a very long time.
For a very long time.
The HIV pandemic, all types of pandemics, Ebola, he was there. And these guys are trying to trip him up. And the only thing that they can probably trip him up because of the pardon is through probably perjury, right?
Yeah.
Of some sort, and push that. Because the norms have been thrown out the door with these guys who are in position of power, right? Now, this regime, the rule of law, none of that matters. All of this is for a mechanization of power for them and to change the rules of the game and move the goalposts all the time. So what they do, how they do it, the norms in before, and I appreciate it too, because this thing about whiteness as this, it'll be done the right way. No, it won't be. Slavery wasn't the right way. Imperialism, colonialism wasn't the right way. These guys have shown, hell no, we're not about that. We're gonna try to fuck him over if we can. And he's smart enough to get the right counsel. Every question that was asked of him.
Fifth.
That shit, not to
What
cut
tie
you
you
off,
wearing?
it
It's like
reminds
the
me of the
Dave Chappelle
Chappelle
shit,
skit. I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yo,
That's how
and
it was.
I think he's smart enough to do that. Look, I was talking about this yesterday. You would think someone like him would say, you know what, this shit, I'm out. I'm gonna go to London.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go somewhere where I don't gotta deal with this stupid shit. Because the problem with anti-intellectual behavior in America is it often turns into violence. And you're gonna get some lone wolf out there who's gonna try to make an example of
And
him
they
at
said
some point.
that Trump pulled his security.
Of course,
detail.
yes, he did. And
To
so
leave him.
I think
Fuckers, man.
can. I think his physical harm to him and his family is always up to happen. If he's smart, and it seems like he is, he's gonna have security. He has to take precaution to that. I think legally, if he stays where he's at, nothing is gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's just he's gonna have to spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder in America. And the fact that that is even a real thing, that they're going after him. The guy, and what is it? The guy cursed, F-bombed him.
Yeah, the senator.
The Hispanic guy, F-bombed him.
I felt like I was watching Goodfellas with him.
for real, but has no smoke for the dude who was married to his daughter. who's
Abusing his daughter.
Yeah.
He quiet as a church mouse with that.
But I think they have to do that they want to justify all the wrong that they have done. So they have to keep that train going. Because they got to satisfy their ignorant constituency.
Right.
And it got to be a fall guy. That's what I kind of feel like.
Yeah.
Fauci is now the
He's
fall,
a fall guy.
But he's too smart to fall for it.
Yeah,
to your point, and I think that's great that everything, I plead the fifth. I'm going to, I'm not going to say
everything.
nothing. But if you look in his eyes while he's saying that, he kind of looking
He's like, yo,
man, this is bullshit.
Yeah,
and it is Trump. The president that is. I ain't even gonna say that. We ain't gonna get into that. But it's just sad because it's almost like from where he sits. And I'm not a scientist. I don't know all the ins and outs of everything. But it's almost like this is the thanks I get for all I tried to do for the American people. Sacrifice so much in my life, my time and energy. Yeah,
14 million globally died from COVID.
Yeah.
So this is what I'll say. And it goes to the Republican playbook. What's happening here is the Republicans are busting this play right now because the Democrats have stayed silent on it. So what they're doing is saying, look, America, we're holding Fauci accountable for his lies, and the Democrats are saying nothing about it. Now, mind you, all of that is because 5 years ago, Trump gave this dude a presidential freedom award or whatever.
Exactly.
He's calling him the greatest scientist. He was backing him up. But the Republicans have become very adept at performative politics on a federal level. And so even the F-bomb from Moreno was performative. It was to get likes, clicks, and subscriptions. Everything now is based on
rage bait,
clickbait, right?
Even Rand, like he's getting his diary, his journal. So the what?
Yeah.
Right. But then after that, where does Rand appear? On Stephen A. Smith. Right? So this thing is all performative.
It's all performative.
I'll tell you, and it goes back to our earlier conversation. I thought about it when I said, I'm going to have to bring this back up about the concept of an opinion, right? So, like, you did polar bears with your Martha's Vineyard? Did you become a polar bear?
What is that?
So
I swear, y'all making me feel broke as with all
Right.
that.
Like, hold on now, all this Jack and Jill.
It ain't nothing. But what I'm saying is there's a song that you sing, and I can't give it away for my polar bears that understand the ritual, but there's a song called Jacob's Ladder that talks about going higher and higher, right? And what I'm saying is, as an American citizen who's a black man, where do I stand on the totem pole of the information that I should be getting versus the information that I have? What I'm saying is, I don't give a where COVID came from. Right. I don't care if it got transmitted from animal to human. I don't care if it was a mistake in a lab that caused it. My father died from complications due to COVID.
My mom bless.
You know what I'm saying? So for me, as a black man in America, my design says I don't try, and this goes back to everything the voter registration piece, why blacks don't vote, why we're losing our electorate, is because of this level of distrust. So when you see this happening, when you see Fauci, who's 85 fucking years old,
Yeah.
Going through this.
right? And you see him going through this, and you see him saying they pleaded the fifth 100 times. When it trickles down to NYCHA, when it trickles down to Brownsville, when it trickles down to Bed-Stuy, our community is like, see, that's why we don't trust these folks. And it affects how we develop civically.
Yeah.
So I don't, like, for me, I don't give a about what's going on with him. What I care about is what can we build systemically and institutionally in our community so that the distrust, the performative, the bullshit, the posturing that happens on a federal level because they're playing that game on that level, how can we insulate ourselves so that we don't tune out because, right? Because when COVID dropped, it was, it's because of the 5G. Remember all the shit?
Yes.
Like, there was a bunch of that was on the
And
lower
listen,
rungs.
and what you said, there's a history of, look, everyone's heard of medical apartheid. That is real.
is
Like
real.
the history of what's happened
Henrietta Lacks,
to black
the
people in
Tuskegee
this country.
experiment.
We immune to pain. Like, like that's real. This is what bothers me, right? We live in a cult of personality where people need leadership or that one person to direct them into the right space and light, and that's dangerous. And what's happened, and I think in the 60s, which was that last vibrant period in America where whiteness was under attack, these systems of colonialism and oppression were under attack, and black people were at the forefront of it. It was a reason why we got crushed, because America realized that, and they waged war against white people who were on the left or in close proximity to blackness and the people who were on the bottom of the social totem pole. And as a result, back to our first conversation, where we look at success next to whiteness, we want to integrate. We want to get a seat at the table. Well, you know what happens? Those people in NYCHA and Brownsville and the people who are poor, who are going to suffer the most because they're on the bottom of the social totem pole, they're going to get lost. Because
they'll never be able to integrate.
There's no coagulation. There's no sharing of information.
There's no trickle down.
There's no, look, we are scared of their kids because we think they're violent. We don't talk to the adults and make sure the elders are okay. And there's no synergy that's pulsating into those communities. And there has to be that. It has to, I'm talking about on a grassroots
On the bottom
level.
rung.
On the bottom.
That's what I'm saying. On the
Ella
bottom
Baker,
rung.
Not Mamdani, yes, save us. No, Ella Baker said power should emanate from the bottom up. And someone has to say, it's not just young people either, because we always get that, well, you're young people, and put our feet up. No, it has to be an intergenerational thing to address those issues, because the unfortunate reality is when it hits the fan, they're going to suffer. We know who's going to suffer the most.
Right.
I was on TikTok, and a black creator that I kind of know, he made a video about Fauci, and he didn't give any information.
No information.
Or like literally didn't say anything, but I've been, I guess reading and watching the news, and it's crazy how evil Fauci really is.
The jab.
Like this guy is really
that's
evil.
what the focus
So
is
me
now,
seeing that, I'm like, oh, Fauci's evil? Let me do my research and figure out why he's evil. I could not figure it out.
No, because it's not.
And I'm like doing all the research. I'm like, have I forgotten how to do research?
No.
And I'm like, where is this man evil? And then they release the diary entries, and I'm reading them. And they talk about how, the part where he was enamored by his own fame. Yeah, you could read some entries and say that he might be enamored and excited that he's become famous. But then if you dig a little bit deeper, he was known by a lot of people already. And you could also read those entries as, ooh, I'm famous. Like it could read as I'm famous and I don't like it.
I'm going to put the public at risk. My fame.
And then it's like, oh, well, he wrote in his diary that he's contradicting himself. In his diary, he said that it's coming from, I think they said in the diary, he wasn't sure that it was coming from animals or originated in that wet market. But then he told the public that it did, and it's just like, do we understand that science is not like definitive?
And it's always changing.
Like people, the word experiment is real. You have to test your theories and run experiments to figure out if they're true or not. And we as humans are not perfect beings, and we can change our mind on something based on
American, listen, the whole Russia and other foreign countries, they realize how ignorant Americans
are.
Right.
Yes.
And they take advantage of it. These corporations weaponize it. These platforms weaponize it. And no one calls that out. And like you said, I similarly, like, I try to stay off of social media nowadays. It's funny. Like, my IG is connected to my Facebook, so whenever I'm blocked, I'm banned from Facebook or blocked out. I'm banned off of Twitter. So when I post,
used to be heating on Twitter. I miss you on Twitter. I forgot
so,
that. Yeah, used to throw heat.
It posts. And people comment, but I can't see it.
Why is that?
I just speak my mind, right?
right.
And a lot of it is based on what we're talking about. Like, the ignorance is weaponized.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm gonna tell you something else about where it transmitted from and what he said versus what happened. It goes back to what I'm saying about opinion. What makes you think that Fauci or Trump or any of the hierarchy federally give a about telling you the truth?
Oh, well,
They don't.
that's
Like
Yeah.
what? Let me ask it a better way. What gives you the right to think they owe you the truth?
Well-
See, we got it screwed up. Like, we look at a structure and a system and an institution that constantly degrades, subjugates, murders, creates deplorability for us, and we still look to this system to be honest with us.
We programmed to think that way,
Yep.
though.
But here's the thing, though, right? For you to have an intelligent response to that, you have to be committed to wisdom.
Right.
If your idea of wisdom is to go on YouTube,
Right.
or like Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
that's not rigorous.
Joe Rogan made hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah,
off the
of
COVID
course.
pandemic.
Yeah.
Of course he did.
Hundreds
Of course he did. So it's like, at some point, though, you have to be committed to intellect.
Yeah.
And when you're not, we in Barnum and Bailey.
Yeah.
Like, anything
It
happen.
goes back to what I'm saying.
Thank God
Alex.
another pandemic didn't happen.
Right.
Right.
And it will.
Eventually, history
eventually.
will.
But I think it goes back, dogs, to the overarching, since we've been in this space, is this concept of family and how important the family structure is.
Yeah.
See, we had a plan. My family had a plan that circumvented and superseded whatever was on the news. I don't even watch the news, right? We designed a plan to keep ourselves safe. And, had my father not had to go to the hospital and catch COVID in the hospital, I feel like our plan was working. Like, I didn't catch COVID until late 2023. I didn't catch it my family didn't catch it because we put a system in place. Why? Because I had a strong father, a wise mother.
Right.
And as the oldest son, I was able to put forth the opportunity, not just for my family, but for my tribe. I don't give a about the lies and deceit going on a federal level. If just like the same thing with this diarrhea shit, it came out, right?
Yeah.
I text my sisters immediately. The list, don't eat this,
Right.
only eat this.
Right.
Now, you could choose to not listen to me or listen to me, but I'm going to react in the truest support of my family structure. And
Everybody don't have that.
I know,
And that's
but
the
it's the
point I made
breakdown.
earlier. Most don't have
Most,
it.
but
Yeah.
it's the breakdown of the family structure which
Yeah.
causes these
Yeah.
flaws, and that's why the most important thing a black man could do is be a father, be a partner, be a leader, and a voice in
A
community.
protector and all that.
And I mean, for me, it's like, you really understand the value or the character of a person when you see how they treat people outside of their family.
Yeah.
That's true.
Like, how they treat other people, kids. And I think that's something. Remember, we are in this wild space where a dude like Jay-Z can help suppress black consciousness and get applauded for wagging his finger at people for doing it.
Yeah.
Meaning that, again, back to what success is. Dog eat dog world, right? And until we change that mindset, that's is going to happen. But the Fauci thing, to me, is an easy play. It's Republican Party
Yep.
false narrative, taking it as far as they can. Part of the problem is the media information system in America is complicit in all the problems in America. They're partly responsible for it. The New York Post didn't become this powerful by mistake. The lady who sold it to Rupert Murdoch, and Murdoch ties to the Republican Party and Reagan, and they're off to the races. And in every city, there's a New York Post. And now the internet, and I'll say this, listen, when those Europeans found that iron ore and got committed to violence, the world was over. The false demarcations of the world was planted. Move these people over here for free labor. It was a mess. And the gun has been great to them. What's even greater is this day and age of techno-feudal digital age of technology. And the misinformation is a way to socially control through algorithms and through normalizing certain thoughts. And they are running the bag up. Listen, you follow what's his name? Carl Jaeger? The Jaeger guy on the right, who's the father behind, not the father, he's the thought guard behind Peter Thiel and all these guys.
Right, yes.
Right. They have a plan. And fascism is closely connected to those who with wealth and power.
Yep.
And there's nothing pushing back against that.
Yeah.
So what they're doing is just a part of their playbook. You would hope that we can educate our young people, educate ourselves so that we can resist this stuff. It has to be a point where we just ignore this.
Too much misinformation out there.
Yeah,
and to everyone's point really quickly, how we talk about all the information we have like on social media, on YouTube and all that, right? See, you're an attorney, right? In order to do that, you had to go to law school, you had to pass the bar. There's no process you have to go through to have an opinion or be a content creator, right? I could be a janitor working at Yale, right? When everyone is gone, the buildings are closed, I could put on a blazer, sit in a lecture hall and say, my name is John Smith, I have a PhD in XYZ, and tell you a whole bunch of and nobody will be none the wiser. And that's the world we're living in.
Yep.
There's no checks and balances to say, well, this ain't real. This can't go out to the people. And people eat that shit. People send me stuff all the time. Yo, I'm like, don't send me that bullshit, man.
Right.
Cats that graduated from YouTube University.
Like, oh my God, it kills me when my friends send me a clip and it's like, did you listen to this? And did you think about what the you just sent me? Like, it pissed me off so bad. You can say something and then we can move on to the next.
I don't have nothing else.
Oh, okay, all right.
I'm looking at this book. God, 50 Cent really signed this for you, dog? That he got, look, 50 Cent signed that? Like, that's nice, man. That's
your ADHD kicking in right now.
Yeah,
we're not even talking about it. But speaking of lies and fallacies, 9/11. So a petition from 9/11 families asked New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani not to attend the remembrance ceremony. And I just want to talk about the problems that Mamdani faces and the backlash he receives when he's doing a pretty good job and his approval ratings are high and he's getting things done. I don't think that my opinion on this, and then I'll let you, and I don't care if anyone wants to put a tinfoil hat on me for this opinion, but when we talk about 9/11,
were you even born around 9/11 though?
How old were you?
I was
young.
like, I think I was in 5th grade when 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
That's a compliment.
Mamdani was 9. He was 9 when it happened.
Oh, okay.
But
so,
that,
I feel like I was in 4th or 5th grade when it happened. But when we talk about 9/11 and people that don't want Mayor Zohran Mamdani there because he's Muslim.
That's a big part of it.
For you to still think that 9/11 was a problem caused by Muslims is honestly insane.
Yeah,
it honestly shows that your level of intelligence is very low, and it's just it's insane to me that we're still doing. Remember, honestly, I get it. We have to remember those that died, but understand who killed these people. Because it wasn't the Muslims.
So listen, you got a lot to unpack with that.
Right.
In a place where people don't read and don't pay attention, right?
Once again.
So people don't understand I've represented people charged with terrorism. I represented people accused of being in ISIS and Al Qaeda. The American foreign policy, particularly into the Middle East, is painted with hypocrisy, imperialism, and colonialism, and you watch my back, I watch yours. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Concerning Iran, concerning Iraq, all of it. And the war on terror was largely a phenomenon created by American foreign policy.
1000%.
They were deposing through CIA and operatives. They were getting rid of duly democratically elected leaders, putting in figureheads who were suppressing the people. They were in bed with the Bin Ladens for a while, right?
House of Bush, House of Saud.
So that whole 9/11, and let's think about this, and you can debate me. We can pull it up year by year. There's no more violent nation state in modernity than America.
Right.
And I'm talking about domestically and internationally, wars and violence, weaponry. That the weaponry right now in South America, Central America, some little kid is shooting another little kid with an American-made gun. So the average American doesn't want to hear that because American exceptionalism makes you think you have the right to exact violence. You have the right to preempt it. You have the right to respond to it. You control the violence. So 5,000 people died in 9/11. Countless other millions have died in the Middle East as a result of American policies.
Right.
So what happens after 9/11? The surveillance state that we now live in, where we don't have our rights to a certain degree, they're not enforced by the Constitution or protected by the Constitution or the Supreme Court, was a direct result of 9/11. That's what kind of sparked out of it. People forget George Bush's play and all this other stuff in it. The fact that you would blame and say Mamdani shouldn't be there when he was 9 years old when it happened speaks to your ignorance and the ignorance in America and the media information system. And listen, I'm not a Mamdani protector. I think Mamdani is the best choice in the lesser of the evils that we had to choose from. I think he's a smart young man who surrounded himself by young white and understands the value of the legacy Democrats and liberals who are there. He pulled from de Blasio's committee. He kept the Tisch billionaire heiress in charge of the police department. He's in a many regards to me, Obama 2.0. He's just a little bit sharper, a little bit brighter. And he's
with
a little
way better infrastructure.
Yeah, way better infrastructure. And when you listen to him, and if you really know your stuff, you're like, okay, what is he not said? I see that's, but okay, I get it. But no way he should be blamed for that. But for him, it's a political thing, right? I want to be there, and I think it just speaks to the ignorance that happens in this place.
But it's another thing at play, and you and I are old enough, and Jay, you're old enough to remember this New York City. But New York City was explicitly segregated by power brokers when we were kids. So when you look at establishment democratic politics, and this is one of the reasons why the Democratic Socialists of America...
And now, let me just say this real quick. Well, people can't even define what a democratic socialist is.
Right. It's a vague term. That's not right and exact. No. But for the sake of conversation, right? What we're seeing politically in New York City now is an assassination of establishment politics, right? Brought about, they call it by the DSA, but it's really by 18 to 34-year-olds. Like, if you look at the numbers, for the first time ever in the city, people 62 and older are not deciding elections anymore. And when we were 20, when we were 30, when David Dinkins became mayor, right? Even when Giuliani, the voting base that controlled New York City was 60 and older, right? So the first time is 18 to 34. But what's happening is the shedding of power brokers. We grew up in a New York City where blacks were in Bed-Stuy, Puerto Ricans were in Bushwick. Jews were in Williamsburg, right? We were Bay Ridge, right? Had Brighton Beach, right? Remember when Joey Farmer and them killed Youssef, right? And it was the whole thing, like, and all of us experienced it. If you went to Howard Beach, if you went to Bay Ridge, we all got chased to the train by white folk, right? So what's happening is the power brokers are no longer in charge. They don't have the keys to the car anymore. They're not driving anymore. And they're trying to figure out how do they maintain power. So you have this mayor who's Muslim, who represents the new era of political leadership, right? What can you do to indict him? Now, like you dogs, I'm not all the way impressed by Zohran. There's tons of things that I feel like there's error there, but I give him grace because I believe in my heart that he can build something that our community can eat from, right? But the power brokers in New York City want to keep power. And they don't want someone like Zohran to be successful.
No, they didn't want him to win.
They didn't want him to win. They wanted Cuomo to win.
They didn't want him to win. He won. And he won because of, youth. Youth is
that
always
demographic
powerful, right?
That 18 to 34.
Yep.
But we've seen his vein before. Bernie Sanders, AOC, now him. And he becomes mayor. Now, listen, the mayor is a popular position. It's a powerful position. It creates a lot of jobs. But ultimately, whoever gets that spot, if you know politics, the real person who controls it is the governor, right? He is a politician and he's smart. He's a reformist. People in this age of adulation and celebrity culture and the cult of personality, people want to anoint him as a revolutionary, a progressive. He's not that. He's a politician.
Right.
But as Marlon stated, they want to have that portal open to knock him because that limits how far he can go, right? Because in America, the Democratic Socialists, the left. You take the left in America and put that left politician around the world in Africa or Asia somewhere or Europe, are looking at him as a centrist,
right?
So
even a conservative,
because there is no. Let's be honest. There's no real left movement in America. If there was, unions would stick together. They wouldn't sell out to the corporations and the money donors when it's time to vote. Like this would be different.
You wouldn't have politicians yielding to PACs.
Right.
No.
Or at the very least, you would have politicians that are listening to their constituents and yielding to that energy.
And so Mamdani represents the hope or the hopium that sold really fast in America through Obama. And he represents that. So they have to kill that off top all the time. And I think that's what it's about. Look, time will tell if he's a reformist, if he's a revolutionary. I don't think he's any of that. I think in my negative, cynical tin hat, what was you say?
Tinfoil hat.
I think he's there. I think most of these democratic socialists ultimately are there to translate to the average American who knows this thing is wrong, that let's keep the power structure. It can be fixed. Look, they voted for me. I got in.
Yeah.
That's my personal view. But I think that's all cap, as the young people
But
say.
we
That's all
got it
bullshit.
going on in our community, and like my opportunity to run really. Like I became really disenfranchised with establishment politics during that process because I got to see behind the curtain
How the sausages
right how the sausages is made. And so what we have is a lot of people that want to hold on to power and a lot of money being funneled to try to hold on to power against the concept of Zohran.
Listen, to run a city, you have to run the media information system. You have to be in control of the public and private financing. You have to be in charge of pensions,
right,
or the laborers. He doesn't control any of that.
No.
But what he does have is a great ability to translate language.
Right.
And how
what he's
things
doing
should be.
better than probably any politician in the history of the city, and he learned this from Councilmember Chiosei, because Chi is amazing with it too.
Big up
It's this
Chi.
concept of
Big
going
up Combat
direct.
Jack.
Yeah, big up Combat Jack. what she showed Zohran and what Zohran uses is the direct to consumer message.
Yeah, the consumer. Yeah.
Right?
Look through TikTok. You got a TikTok account.
social media.
Right? Yo, he goes on Twitter when he did the message about.
Listen, I saw some on him on Roland Martin where he was telling Roland Martin that Dinkins was a democratic socialist.
Right.
And I'm like, what the f are you talking about? I was in New York City, bro. Right. Like that's not. But his ability. He got this shit smoother than he's very good at messaging.
They're very
I would
good
say
with
almost
messaging.
as powerful as Obama was.
Yeah, they're very good with messaging.
Very similar.
That message he did, that 250 year to America when he was, man, that blew. If you hated him, you hated him even more. Right. And if you loved him even more. So he has the ability to do that. And when you can do that on camera and it could translate to people like that, you are what we call a star. Yeah. And so that's what he is. He's no revolutionary.
No, he's not.
But he's a star.
Even when he did at the Knicks parade, that speech was
he's a star,
like,
bro.
Wow.
Yeah. And people fall for that.
And people love stars. America loves stars.
Listen, and for me personally, I'm tired of the stars.
I'm tired.
I don't want to be entertained. I'm tired of the stars.
But I don't know how we're ever gonna dismantle Americans' love for stars. Our celebrity.
That's what the country is built on. That's what the country is built on.
That's like a fundamental part of being American.
And most of the time, they are a part of the problem.
Yeah.
When you look behind the scenes.
Because stars can be manipulated.
They are.
And they are.
Willingly
manipulated.
They go on where to check.
Right, to go back to the thing about the 9/11 piece, this is just an effort by power brokers in the city that want to maintain some sort of ability to indict Zohran without indicting him. They're very upset about how AIPAC is being translated into community. They're very upset about how certain monies, how those monies control politics, how the tone and tenor driven by this concept of DSA is pushing a lot of that ability to money out the game, and they want to stop that. But what they don't understand is what we always need to understand about the youth is that the youth are driven differently. They're driven by the passion and ambition of the world that they want to live in. Yeah. And if young people don't want to live in this world, they're going to change it so that they don't live in it.
And I think there's a space for young people to bring forth a different type of cult of personality. I think the next iteration of that type of progressive person, he or she is going to be able to connect the dots as to what's happening in Sudan, Congo, Mississippi, Brownsville, Haiti, Compton, Gaza, the slums of Greece or wherever else. And a person who can speak that language and about the environment and about colonial mindsets and colonialism is still permeating our societies. That's what this place is afraid of. So when they get these little, I look at them as like, you ever had a mosquito so small you can't see it, but that shit biting you?
Yeah.
That's what the Mamdanis are.
Yeah.
For those class of people, because when you look at nationalism and you look at the people who are getting all the money right now, right? The barons, the robber barons of today are the Elons and all these guys.
Yeah.
They don't have a country. Their country is their ideas matched with their money,
with their
currency,
money. And they know
capitalism.
that's why this white right wing movement is not just in America. They want to permeate that all around the world
globally
to combat the when you get the Mamdanis of the world.
And they don't live here. Like Peter Thiel and
he's in Argentina.
He's
in Argentina. It's getting real 1984.
Yeah.
George Orwell. It's getting really that.
I was talking to my niece today about that book.
Great book.
Yeah. Moving on to film. So Children of Blood and Bone is a new film that it seems like all of Black Hollywood is in it, and it's ready to come out. And the writer of the book that the film was adapted from is not happy. Her name is Tomi Adeyemi, and her African fantasy novel was optioned for the second time. The first time was from George Lucas. Can you clarify that? Yeah, of course. What that actually means? The first was from George Lucas film.
Yeah, so like it was optioned first. Like George Lucas' company wanted to make the film first. Signed her to the contract. It was a headache. It's fine.
Dropped it. Yeah.
She got picked up again. And now here we go.
And here we are. And the trailer has dropped. I saw the trailer. But she has been very vocal about just the process and hating all of it.
Why does she hate it?
I don't know, because she hasn't been super detailed in her reasoning. So she's been vocal about not wanting to watch the film when it comes out. She wants to separate herself from it, but she hasn't talked about specifics.
She didn't talk about much, like, and that's the thing when you say, and I agree, she's been vocal about it, but it's been like vocally empty about it. Like, she didn't say exactly why she felt the way she felt. You know, her little video she did about it was very cryptic. And it's like, you know, I'm always, when a sister is trying to get her art out there and do something, and she feels like, I guess, Hollywood is not letting her put her story out the way she wants to put it out, I'm all for you advocating for yourself. But when you don't tell anyone what the real issue is, it's like, how can we advocate for you or be with you? And granted, you don't have to tell anybody anything, because I know as a creative, your intellectual property, like people say, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit. Right. And looking at the trailer, it does have some big names in it. You know, Damson Idris is in it. Idris Elba is in it. You know, so
I thought it was Black Panther when I saw it.
I was gonna say,
is that Black Panther?
No, it looked like Black Panther.
Arisha?
Yeah.
Oh, I saw that trailer.
Yeah.
It does look like Black Panther.
I was like, is this Black Panther?
I was off when I'm watching it and I'm hearing a Beyonce song. I'm like, what the is this?
That too.
More Black Panther shit.
So I can, just from being kind of, I mean, like, I ain't no famous actress or nothing, but just kind of from being
sister, you know, if that's what you want to be, you know.
But just kind of like from being on set and, like, you know, talking to writers, you are not, once you sell your film to Hollywood, you are selling full control. You are never going to be able to make the decisions that you have control of, all the decision making. For instance, like, you can't even control who plays your main character. You may want the main character to be dark skinned, but the producers say no, they need to be racially ambiguous. And you may even do the screen test and do the table reads with the dark skinned actor, and the dark skinned actor might be 10 times better than the racially ambiguous person that the studio wants. But guess what? The studio's going to beat you on that. There's certain things that you are not going to be able to beat the studio on. You may win in small pockets, but major things, they are going to beat you because they are funding the film. You've sold it to them. It's their money over your creativity.
To your point, before I forget, watching one of her videos, there was a comment that someone posted, and it was so powerful. It said, wombs are formed when art meets commerce. And that blew me away, because that's exactly what you're saying. Like, when you take your art and then it's no longer, I just did this for expression, to represent how I was feeling, or, you know, a time or people, and you try to get money for it, then the rules change. Gets twisted up.
You know, I mean, look, you know, as somebody who's published a novel and, you know, who was, you know, trying to shop it to sell the rights of it, you are aware of this when you get into it, right? And if you look at the history of, like, authors that have made amazing flicks, like even with George R.R. Martin with Game of Thrones, he is livid over whenever whenever they separate from his book, he's livid over it. But guess what? That's the game, right? And so I don't know. I haven't studied about this sister. I heard periphery things about she was upset. I saw the trailer, and again, you know, my mind has been elsewhere, so it didn't really hit to me.
It didn't hit to me.
I mean, this is just personally, like, I'm not impressed with art in general now.
Yeah, it didn't hit me like that.
It, you know.
But what I'll say is that there's this thing that happens, like you said, when art meets commerce. Like, you sold the rights, and this is the second time the rights were sold. So you sold the rights, you signed a contract.
Do something, like, use that to inspire you. To do something else, like,
and then create something else. Or better yet, work to own and have dominion over filming your own shit.
And it's hard. Definitely, like, it takes money to bring
do it,
your creations to life at the scale that you want. But yeah, she said that, you know, she's left the set hyperventilating. She's had severe panic attacks.
Like, come on.
sobbing.
But you got that check.
She got that check, and honestly, when I watched the trailer, I'm like, I see why you was hyperventilating a little bit, because this does not feel like how I know you want this.
Did you read the book?
No, I didn't. I didn't read the book.
Okay,
I haven't read the book.
So I'm interested to see someone who read the book that's seen the trailer give their opinion, because I didn't read the book.
Listen, there's two thoughts. Some people believe that our story should be told and the sacrifice is worth it, even if it's watered down. And some people believe, no, you should stick to the script. And I think it sounds like, you know, she perhaps is in a bubble a little bit.
Let me ask you this, though. Or I'll ask the whole panel. Tell me your favorite movie that was adapted from a book that you read. So you read the book and then you saw the movie. Right.
It's a good question.
I'll start. I got one that probably no one would think.
I didn't like Malcolm X. And I love the book. The book helped me become it. The book is one of the reasons why I love the book. I didn't like the movie.
You didn't like the movie?
No.
The movie made me want to convert to Islam, man. But But I'm gonna tell you why. Because I was a young kid, first of all, and how powerful Denzel looked in that role, man. That's what it was, and just seeing how disciplined he was, you know. So it was more so.
But that's what movies do.
I love the book.
That's what movies do.
But I also love the movie, but I didn't attribute the movie to the book. I'll be honest with you. When I saw Malcolm X, I didn't even think about the book.
That was my problem.
Yeah.
Gotta separate the two sometimes.
I didn't even separate it. But I'm gonna tell you. So there was a book by V.C. Andrews, Flowers in the Attic. You ever read it?
Oh, I read that book.
So Flowers in the Attic
I never
was made
watched
into
the
a
movie.
Yeah, I saw the movie. I love the movie.
I read Flowers in the Attic. Our Petals in the Wind. I actually read the whole series, right? The movie did not do the book justice. Right? There was stuff in the movie like the husband and wife was actually brother and sister. Like they didn't put that in the movie, right? They f***ed up the book.
It was only one. It was one book I read that I liked the movie. It was about Clarence. It was about a trial that Clarence Darrow did. Leopold. It was about these two friends who killed the little boy.
Right.
I like the film and I like the book.
And you like the book. So what happens, I think, is especially with novels, is directors, producers, writers, they take their own shit and they bring it to it, and it quite often does not match. And I think as the author, she has a right to be perturbed. I think as a consumer, I'd like to see the movie and read the book, and I'll come up with my own.
Was this her first
That's what I think.
Major thing?
I'm not sure. I think it is, but I'm not positive on that. But I feel like she's probably also, I'm just making things up here at this point, but if this is her first major piece of work, she's probably also feeling like, damn, I put so much of my heart and soul into this. I love this. It's getting watered down. And I also don't know if I have something else of this magnitude.
In the chamber.
Yeah.
So question, and this might sound crazy, right? So looking at the trailer, it seems like the film is about black magic, which could be looked at as voodoo and things like that, whatever.
Which voodoo isn't bad.
No, I was about to say that. But that's what we have been taught. And if you don't have knowledge of self and you don't do your own research, you will think that, right? From an American point of view, right? So from watching a clip of the sister, I don't know if it's maybe something spiritual bothering her, like because her giving such a cryptic message and not saying anything. I'm like, maybe like she feels like maybe the ancestors aren't satisfied. That's how I kind of felt. You know, and maybe she ain't want to say that.
Be on the hook.
But that actually probably is a bit too, because when you give something to Hollywood, of course the ancestors are not. Hollywood and the ancestors are
worlds apart.
So
why are you thinking that?
So the ancestors and Hollywood are two different places.
Should have never came there trying to do the film.
Yeah, all the best to her. Hopefully she recovers from this, understands, and then just focuses on producing something else, and then maybe she has enough money to do her next project the way that she wants to do it. But yeah, shout out to her, and I will go watch the movie, and I actually will read the book.
Yeah, I'll watch.
Yeah, I'm gonna do my homework. I didn't do my homework on it.
Yeah. Moving on to sports. Let's talk about LeBron going to the 76ers.
Knicks fans. I'm not a Knicks fan. My family is. I know these guys got to be Knicks fans.
I
Absolutely.
don't know
Without
what the
question.
significance of
They
this
go
is.
listen. Knicks
other
fans
than
are
that.
only going to speak about it in Knick language. I will say this.
Not to be objective.
I like the Jaylen Brown. I only like two sports guys. I'm a reader of $40 Million Slave, so I'm kind of off athletes. Besides Lamar and Jaylen Brown, I don't even keep up with guys. I'm kind of surprised that LeBron is pairing with. I can see why he's going to Philly because his career, Philly ain't win the chip since what? Dr. J?
83.
83.
Okay.
So if you can get to Philly is like, I don't know those who've been to, I like Philly. Philly like
No, I like Philly.
Yeah,
I
Philly
like
like
it too.
a hybrid of Brooklyn. Like it's
Okay.
It's like Brooklyn meets
real
Baltimore.
Baltimore.
Yeah.
Right. It's like
Yeah.
Brooklyn meets Baltimore.
It's
Okay.
a real gritty town. So I'd imagine that has something to do with it. But him pairing with Jaylen Brown, I think is interesting. I like that kid because LeBron. He what was the Malcolm X? He didn't read that damn book.
No.
When he's talking about it. I think Jaylen Brown really read this. So
Oh,
now
yeah.
you get those two personalities in the
Yeah.
locker room. Alpha
In a very
males.
black conscious
And
town.
Yeah.
very black conscious
It is a
town,
very
very
black
gritty
conscious
town. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I don't know why he chose. I don't know. I mean, look. Who knows? I don't know.
I mean, I think that he went to where it would give him the best chance of winning a championship in his
think
eyes.
that's the best?
This year or next year. I mean, there was talks about him going to Golden State with Steph
Why not?
Curry.
Why not? What is it? Why not go to San Antonio? The
Right.
Knicks turned him down. They said.
Right. Yeah.
I can see Dolan is a
and
MAGA
then
guy, so I
Miami
can
was
see that.
one of the spots he
Cleveland.
was talking about.
But
Cleveland.
Miami ain't got no bench no more.
Right.
Well,
and they don't have no
a
money.
bench, yeah.
Once they grabbed him, they wouldn't be able to get
Get
nobody
anybody.
else.
And then Cleveland did it. He
And
got Cleveland.
LeBron left Miami. He wasn't a Pat Riley guy.
Oh, okay.
Nah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
Like, there's
what it
a
was?
story that went around years ago that Pat
They
Riley
got
like
two
snatched
chips.
his cookies
They
from
got-
him on the plane. or
they
some
got
shit.
two chips there?
They got two chips. They went
Yeah.
to
They
four.
coulda
They
had
went to
three,
four.
right?
No, they went to four.
They went to four appearances.
They lost to
They
San
lost to
Antonio
Dallas.
once, and they lost to
To
Dallas
Dallas.
Yeah,
once.
they shouldn't have
Yeah.
lost to Dallas.
They shouldn't
I
have
remember
lost to
that.
Dallas. They should have 3 rings.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But I think
Y'all think he's gonna commute from New York?
he is. That's what he said. He's going to commute from
that's
New York.
crazy. Why would
We've
you do
never
that?
seen an athlete like LeBron James.
No, we haven't.
And
Physically, we
I
haven't.
don't think we'll ever see an athlete like LeBron
be a
James.
long
I don't
time.
think the system will call for this type of person. LeBron's going to play 25 years in the NBA, which is unheard of.
At a high level.
Crazy.
At a
Yeah.
high
Look,
level.
people talk to Jordan, but Jordan, once he got to the Bulls, was hard to watch.
What you mean?
You mean once he got to the Wizards?
Wizards.
Yeah,
Wizards. I said
yeah.
the Bulls.
He was
Wizards.
done. He was a
He's
shell of
done.
himself.
Jordan
He
was done at 36.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He was done.
LeBron is still top, 20 player in the NBA?
He's going to average 17, 8, and 8.
But even
Yeah.
like top player.
Yeah, he's a top 20 player
in the
now,
NBA.
right?
That's
So
kinda
to
ill.
have a guy 25 years in the league, totally controls his
messaging,
dynamic, his
everything,
messaging,
yeah.
his arc. His agent is black. His
Yeah.
wife's been with him forever.
Got his son in the league.
He gets
Yeah.
right. So LeBron has shown a level of dominion in the league
that they never
that's
seen.
unmatched.
Yeah, it's unmatched.
Right.
And so me and shout out to Brett Carter, Craig Carter, those my peoples. They both deep New York bowlers.
Those are his guys?
No, those my guys from Brooklyn, but they're deep New York bowlers. And we was at a block party last week. And I'm not necessarily the LeBron fan, right? I think I'm a Kobe guy, right?
Right.
I wasn't
And
a
so
Kobe guy.
and so we went back and forth. But I do agree with them with this. It's like people critique LeBron because they've never experienced him before.
No, he broke
Right.
the mold.
He broke the mold of what an athlete is.
What an athlete is, and in a sense, also of like the art. Like, listen, let's be honest. Most of the athlete conversations and debates are like low, like the bar
Low
is
vibration,
low.
right.
His vibration is low.
Yeah.
So he broke all that. Went to what, fourth? What? How many teams he got rings with? 3.
He got rings with 3 teams.
Wait, hold on.
He got rings with Cleveland, Miami, and
Lakers,
LA.
Cleveland, yeah, 3.
3
right?
teams. That's who has that.
He can get a ring with Philly, which would be a very dynamic
That
ring.
would-
It'd probably
yeah,
be
it
the
would.
best ring out
Ring
of his
out of the
4,
world, yeah.
right? But even deeper than that, he's controlled his narrative. He's controlled the discussion, right? He's controlled his business, and he doesn't have the business impact that Jordan had. Because when Jordan did it, no one had did it.
No
He was
one had
number
done it.
one,
He's number
right?
one, yeah.
But what's happening now, if you look at the league is low key subjugating and silencing the voices of their stars.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Look at SGA.
Yeah.
You hear him much?
No.
No.
Look at Wemby. You
But
hear
you know what
him
though?
much?
I think that's a result of capitalism.
Yes.
Because like we just said, when all these opinions and about people start coming out, that's affecting the bottom line. So I think the goal now today is to keep the star like this.
Yeah.
Right?
Or to
And
keep
then-
him
listen,
on message.
Nobody knows what Beyonce's about.
Right.
Nobody really know besides Jay-Z's
That
rhymes.
mystique.
You don't know who he is, what
Right.
he's
Yeah.
about. You don't, what athletes do you get to be like, wow. So Jaylen Brown kind of breaks that mold because homeboy, this kid is saying like, yo,
Right.
he talking algorithms, he's
Right.
talking
Yeah.
about race, he's talking about
He's
all types
intelligent,
of,
man.
Yo, the bar is low. He's going at Stephen A. Smith, but I'll tell you a story. My son went to the thing they have in Vegas with the league, the NBA, where they play
Summer League.
Summer League. He said he went to Jaylen Brown's show and party, and he said the vibe was like players are kind of staying away from Jaylen Brown because he's speaking. Yo, Master ain't gonna give me that money.
Go against the
So
grain,
I think
man.
I think that's purposive.
It's purpose, yeah.
That you don't know what's going on with
But the
these
other
guys.
thing about it is so the NBA, when Jordan and Magic and Kareem and Bird were the league, the NBA was second. It was MLB,
and then
NBA, NFL,
NFL.
right?
Yeah. Now what is it?
Now it's NFL, MLB,
and
NBA.
Okay.
Right? So when the NFL took over Christmas, because remember, for a decade or two, Christmas belonged to the NBA.
Yeah.
Christmas was
Yeah.
Jordan playing the Knicks.
Lakers.
Right,
Yeah.
Lakers playing the Celtics.
Yeah.
Now, NFL has taken that market share where you had a Vikings-Lions game last year that 40 million
right.
people watched, and the Knicks versus whoever they was playing,
Is
like
that
4 million
somehow
people.
connected to politics?
Yeah,
like it's
because the
connected to
NFL,
politics
the
and
NFL got an
race.
influx of Department of Defense money.
Well,
The NFL got a ton of
because
military
because
money.
the NFL is baby nationalism.
Yeah,
You know,
the
that's-
NFL
it
got
is.
a ton
It
of
is.
money, and the NBA made the decision to be a global thing,
Yeah.
and I don't think that's played well.
and
for the
the
owners.
so-called left politics of the league for
Right.
whatever reason.
Remember, Kaepernick kneeled and got
got
booted.
Right.
got
LeBron
Yeah.
and the whole team.
get that son of a out of
You know
here.
what I'm saying? They did it, and there's really
Yeah.
nothing to league. So I think the league is trying to exact more dominion over its stars now. And LeBron is, and I was telling my peoples this, LeBron is the last, you're never going to see another LeBron in the NBA. You're not going to see somebody that takes that level of dominion over their over their life and their career. What you're going to
Unless
see...
they win, unless they're able to win on a level that's
but
never
even
been
then,
seen
they're throwing
before.
these cats money to silence
Silence
them. Like,
them.
even look
Yeah.
at a Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson should be, like, regal in New York. He
Yeah.
bought us a ring.
Right.
It's like
He should
next.
be on the cover of 2K.
Right.
Wemby on
But
the
I
cover.
mean-
Come on,
I
man.
mean, what can he really say? He got a white wife.
Ah!
So
Yo, that's
what,
most of the
what
team, though.
do we really
Good
want to
point.
hear?
That's most of the
from,
team, right?
Yeah, but
Most
what
of
do
these
we
athletes.
want?
I'm
What
about
do
to
we want
say shit. That's
hear
most of the league.
from
Yeah.
the black community standpoint? What do we want to hear from you with your white
and by the
wife?
way,
Right, that's true.
it's funny you said that protesting with the George Floyd thing, right? IBM, which had 5% black people there, and they probably was janitors, turned their logo into red, black, and green. Now that shit is over. DEI, attack on DEI is going on. But I remember in the NBA, Obama, LeBron reached out to Obama because they were going to do a strike, work stoppage. Obama told him, nah, keep working and just do your message.
Do your messaging, right? Remember,
not a-
Jerry
I'm not a-
Jones.
The strike would have been the most
said-
powerful
When the
thing.
NBA did their the Cowboys were saying, well, look, Jerry Jones said, anybody who protests,
Your
your
ass
ass is
gone.
done.
Outta
You're
here.
gone.
That's
Yeah,
Out of
he's
here.
And
Yep.
the NFL at the time was almost 70% black.
I know.
That's crazy.
And what did Trump say? Get those son of a
Yeah,
out
get
Yeah.
some out of there.
it's like if all the black people just was like, well, we're striking, there wouldn't be no NFL.
and that's why we get caught up in boycotting. I don't buy that.
Right.
Because a boycott speaks to if you do something,
I'm gonna buy it again.
I'll buy it
Right.
again.
I'll buy it again.
Right.
Yo, we got to
Right.
start making a list and striking shit off.
Yeah.
And people
Right.
don't want to do that
People
because they
don't
don't
wanna
know
do that.
what life is like outside of white hegemony.
Yep.
Once again.
Which is
Yep.
scary. Terrible. But Thank you guys so much. This was a
Thank
great
you.
show.
This was a good conversation, right?
Great
Great
conversation.
convo.
I loved hearing all of your opinions
Likewise.
today.
Right.
Likewise.
Make sure, audience, you guys like, follow, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when all of our episodes air. I want to give you guys a chance to do a more in-depth shameless plug. I know we did our intros in the beginning. Now tell everybody where they can find you, where they can follow you, where they can read your articles that you write in your free time, and anything you want to
Right.
share. We can go. To
Yeah,
I'm about to
so
say, I'm going
so you
last.
get his right.
I'm going last.
Well, y'all already know me. You can find me at marlonriceforny.com. All over the socials with Marlon Rice. I don't have one of them funny style names. But look for me in community. That's where I'm at more than anything is 10 toes down in Central Brooklyn. That's where you can find me.
Okay. If you kill somebody, you charge with a federal crime.
You can find dogs.
State crime.
Hopefully you don't need them.
Why the fraud? You will find me, unfortunately. But seriously, I want to put myself out of business. But I'm in my law office and branding and community office is in Clinton Hill, 396 Waverly. We out here. We out here. So in your local federal state court across this country, if you want to read me and my brothers, and particularly my right hand Philip Shung, we put out a community paper called the Brooklyn Combine. You can go to I should know this, the brooklyncombine.com website. You can read all of our articles. It's free paper. We do programming at Crossroads and local high schools. We do a Saturday breakfast program at our office. If you want to bring your kid by, it's not age specific. We send kids to Brooklyn from Brooklyn to Alaska free of charge every summer for 2 weeks. And we just trying to change the narrative that's out here. But my law practice is kjmontgomerylaw.com. But I would love one day to put myself out of business.
Can I ask about a plug? Y'all doing a block party this year?
We are gonna do the party August 22nd. Damn, August, my man. August 22nd. We were gonna try to do the block party. I don't know if we got the papers in fast enough because I was away, Phil was away. But nevertheless, come by 396 Waverly. The party's gonna emanate from our backyard onto the street. Free music, food,
And vibe.
community, and
Right.
vibes. So
Beautiful.
Thank you, bro.
Beautiful. I just want to say, first of all, man, it's just dope to be sitting up here with Black excellence. You know what I mean? I know both of these brothers, man, and they are really cats moving the needle, you know, in Brooklyn and just in community. So to sit here with these cats and for the conversation to be led by a dynamic Black woman is beautiful.
Smart.
So I
Brilliant.
just want to say that.
amazing. You holding
Nah,
it
for
down.
real.
Right.
So myself, like I said, comedian, actor Zohran Johnson. My biggest thing right now is letting people know that I have a film coming once again in spring 2027 called Spur of the Moment that I co-wrote, starred in, that we shot in San Antonio. I'm very proud of that.
Spur of the moment.
Spur of the moment. Yeah. It's so crazy that the Knicks won the chip and we call it Spur of the Moment. But when you see the film, you'll understand why it's called that, man. And just out here trying to do other stuff outside of entertainment. I'm also an educator and I have a program called Media Hearts that I'm growing, that I'm trying to expose our children to different career paths in media. Because like I said, as an educator, I work in a lot of spaces where I see our kids, non-Black peers, exposed to so many different things. And basically, their lives are already set up for them. You know, they may have a mother that works for NBC or, you know, a father that owns an entertainment company. So they don't have to put in the work our kids do. So I kind of want to try giving our kids a head start in some of these career paths and just exposing them to different ways to express themselves.
And
So
this brother came out. We run a program at Crossroads Juvenile
Yes.
Jail Center. Young kids, 12 to 21, charged with very serious crimes. Many of them are going to still be in jail, and I'll probably be out of this earth. This brother came down, offered his experiences, perspective, and I think that's what Marlon, like me and Marlon, our communities are connected. Like, I think it's important for people to, like, get up with each other, not for clout purposes, but meaningful relationships. And I really appreciate both of these
And be
brothers.
Black
Same.
men. Like don't just be a male, but be a Black man in community, right? Take ownership over your family, take ownership over your space, take ownership over your block, right? And be intentional about that.
Yeah, and
I
be
think we all
okay
do that.
being by yourself when you walk in a path that you think is correct. Like, don't do it. I'm talking to the young people out there, young women and men. Like, yo, you can control your narrative, and it may be difficult, but yo, out of difficulty, that's where the progress and the wisdom comes.
Absolutely. I 1000% agree.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I just want to say one more thing. I'm sorry. I know we got to wrap this up. Speaking of the program, right? And it was so, how can I say it, like refreshing to be in that space, right? And see how creative those young people were and some of the things they created and some of the podcast episodes that they did. It was dope. But one thing that stood out to me, like when they came in, everybody was sitting there first, right? And I was sitting down and they all came to sit in that area. And somebody said to me, yo, you can move over here. I said, nah, I'm gonna sit right here. And I sat in the midst of them and we talked and we chopped it up. And they came in and greeted me with so much love. Yo, what's up, OG? What's up? And talking to me about what they have going on and the things they aspire to do once they get released. And I felt the impact of y'all program just in that little bit of time, me sitting there talking to them and how energized they were and how much positive energy was in the building. So I just wanted to say that was like, it was just such a dope experience for me, man. And it just speaks to the work that is being done by Black men and the work that needs to continue to be done by Black men. So.
Yes, very important.
Take us home.
Yeah.
Take us home.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming today. We had a very important conversation, and I loved it. I wish we could sit here for 2-3 hours
This was
and
dope.
keep talking. And but unfortunately, we can't. Hopefully, we have you guys back on another episode. 2 repeating guests here. Hopefully, we get to make you a repeating guest as well.
And shout out to Keith White, because Keith
Yeah,
White.
Keith is my partner.
Yeah,
He's my little
Keith,
partner.
Keith is a repeating guest as well. We love all of the Black minds that we get to bring to this show.
Yo,
and it's
listen,
super
if
important.
you guys want a nice drink and good music and vibes, two of my Combine brothers just opened up Deep Dive Bar in Bed-Stuy on Patchen. Beautiful spot. And Don't Matter, right near the Brooklyn Bridge. You get on the Brooklyn Bridge, right to the right. It's Felton Brown opened up a bar in Vinyl Bar right there.
In Brooklyn?
In Brooklyn.
Okay.
So y'all would really enjoy
know
it.
that.
Yeah, August
I
5th
might
is the
go.
opening day.
Oh,
Yeah.
August 5th. Okay.
That's what's up.
Amazing.
That's
Congrats.
beautiful.
Shameless
I will
plug.
be checking it out. I'm gonna
you'll
write
like
it down.
it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write it down in my notes because I got a list of restaurants and bars
Nah,
that I want to go
yes.
to in my notes. So we'll be writing that down. Thank you so much. Make sure you guys tune in every week to What Just Happened, and we'll see y'all next time.
One love.
This is dope.
Later.